Meeting at the office. We've heard this advice from countless experts in safety seminars and training pieces all over the country about how meeting at the office is the number one thing that you can do in order to keep yourself safe. Well, let's start to dispel that myth right now, and let's get to some of the obvious parts right off the bat. Number one, you're not going to do it. You're not going to do it every time. It's not like clicking on your seatbelt. It's not convenient. You're afraid that you're going to lose a client because you don't want to put them out. Let's say you're on the east side of town. Your clients are on the east side of town. The property's on the east side of town, but your office is on the west side of town. You're not going to put all of you through that pain and hassle and waste everyone's time, because time is valuable, to go back across the other side of town in order to come back to see that one property. You're not going to do it. And, if you do, congratulations, but we'll get to why it's not effective in a second. But so number one, you're not going to do it. Then they have the Safe Haven program, which says that, okay, you can meet at partner offices and other places around, and there you can go into their office, and then, that's a place that you can meet if you are all on the east side of town. The problem with that is first impressions are very important. And if you can't control that environment, you don't know what you're walking into. It's not your office. It's not your people. Maybe you don't know them. Maybe you do, but it's not your place. So it becomes less desirable because you can't control that situation. You can't control that circumstance. Is there going to be a conference room available? Or are you just going to sit in the lobby? That feels kind of uncomfortable and weird. So are you going to use it? Well, the answer is no. I don't have any empirical data or statistical data to see whether or not people are using the Safe Haven program, but it just doesn't seem to be all that effective because you're not going to use it every time, and you're not going to meet at the office every time no matter what. So let's pass over that. Let's get past that one piece. The second part is, so you meet at the office. A lot of us have smaller offices, and there may or may not be any staff there or very many people there to begin with. Maybe you have a front desk, maybe nobody's sitting in it at the time. There are a lot of offices that really aren't physically open. You have to open them up with keys, so they don't have full-time staff in them. So by meeting at the office, what are you really doing? You're just taking them to another empty, vacant place. I don't see the point. What are you trying to get at? Now, people will say, oh, it's a deterrent because a bad guy won't follow you to the office. Look, I don't know about that, but I can tell you one thing. The bad guy probably doesn't think of a real estate office as a very high threat area for them. There are likely not to be security cameras. There's not going to be any law enforcement. There's not going to be anybody there that recognizes them. I mean, the chances of that being a risky thing for them, pretty slim to none. By the way, if they've already picked you out, they've already figured out about your office. They probably looked it up. They've probably driven by. They probably know what to expect when they get there. So it may or may not even be an effective thing. But let's get past all of that, and let's just say that you go to the office and you do what you're recommended to do, and you introduce these prospects to someone at the front office. So what? What are they going to do? Is anybody at the front office going to say, you know what, I forbid you to leave with these people because I think there's something wrong? Well, that opens you up for a whole lot of different things. One could possibly be a fair housing violation. Based on what are you saying that you're not going to leave with that client? Based on what? What impression? What reason do you have? Did you run a background check on them? Probably not, because you don't have access to that information. Or if you do, be very careful about that, because just because somebody is a convicted criminal, it doesn't mean that they can be discriminated against if they've paid their dues and done their time and all of that. So you have to be very careful with what you do with that information. It doesn't mean you have the right to refuse service, but be very careful about how you go about that. You can't just say somebody doesn't look right. You can't say, well, I didn't trust them, or they were a little shifty, or they looked a little funny. Maybe they have a disability. Maybe they have something that doesn't work quite right. Be very careful about what you do. And most people don't. You're not gonna anyway. You're not gonna get somebody into the office and say, no, I'm not gonna go out with you, or I forbid you to go out with someone. So even though you introduce them to somebody, it doesn't do you any good. So here's what the status quo comes back with. They say, well, it gives at least one more set of eyes on them so they can help identify them later. Really? That's your safety plan. Your safety plan to prevent something bad from happening is to help gather witnesses after a crime has occurred? Come on, people. That makes no sense. That's the dumbest thing you could possibly do. Okay, it makes sense on one level, but let's focus on not having the bad thing not happen. Not trying to gather witnesses that can help the police identify the body and identify the bad people. Let's not focus on that end. Let's focus on the front side. Let's focus on preventing something. On if you can't prevent it, avoid it. If you can't avoid it, try to impede the bad guy and keep them from doing what they want to do. And if you can't impede them, try to deter them, fight them off, do something along those lines. Let's focus on those things before we get all the way down the line to help identify witnesses and have someone else who can say where you're going and who you were with, just to help the police find a first place to look. That is not thinking in the right spot. Fine. You want to do that, you want to bring people in, but I got to tell you, it's not doing anything to help you. So that's the big part. You're not going to do it, and it's not effective. So why is meet at the office still pushed out there as the number one thing that everybody keeps recommending? Well, the main reason is because nobody knows what they're talking about. The real estate industry is very famous for putting themselves out there and saying, look, work with an expert, work with someone who is experienced. You need to find someone that has the right type of experience and specializes in the area that you're concerned with in order to get the stuff done. You go to a mortgage specialist, you go to a mortgage expert, you go to a title company, you go to an attorney, you go to all these different folks and a home inspector that have experience that's relevant to you, that you can trust. But then when it comes to realtor safety or personal safety, personal security, they go, you know what? Why don't you give a class on it? And then they look to themselves. They look to another real estate agent. Now tell me, what does a real estate agent know about personal security? Not much.